tribes of 150 maybe.
And yet, that's what it took to become successful CEOs of enormous corporations.
Yeah, but the thing is,
being nasty.
You know, just because certain things you can do doesn't mean you should do it. And I think the person who created who discovered or built the atomic bomb, actually regretted it after he built it, didn't he?
He was charming, actually. He had a lot of emotional intelligence. Oppenheimer actually taught charm to the Dean of Oxford into letting him stay on after he'd underperformed or after he's misbehaved.
So, I mean, I think you regretted it. So just because you can do it, you got to ask yourself, doesn't mean you should.
Well, he didn't profit from it, did he? So
no, he didn't.
A psychopath.
But he created something of innovation and progress, and then it was turned into something for destruction. And it was used for destruction. It wasn't even just there as a threat. So we've got nuclear weapons now, and they're used as a threat.
Used for destruction, but it's also the best source of energy production as well, isn't it?
It is. So in that sense, you know, you look at something like Facebook, and you've got to say, yeah, do you know what? People will look at it and will think, yeah, actually, it's probably changed my life. I've got more of a social life now, whatever. I can talk to people around the world. But you've got to look at the other side of it. People are becoming more depressed and watching things like
Facebook
that.
Facebook is just a forum for mass control.
Fear of missing out, so you're constantly spending all your time in it. I've hardly used Facebook
is more dangerous than state control, because you're under the illusion of thinking that you're doing what you want and that you're having a good time, but it totally controls you, which is why more and more people are getting depressed, and particularly women are self-harming and committing suicide.
I'm not sure that's the only reason, but
of course it's not the only reason, but it is a major reason, because it's a forum. It's a forum of interpersonal aggression, and women are particularly bad at that.
I can't collaborate that, so I'm going to corroborate. What did I say?
Collaborate. Mind you, I want to collaborate.
Do you know, I had this meeting this morning where collaboration just came up so often, so it's stuck in my head, I'm afraid.
It's okay.
Where was I?
Facebook,
yeah, it's all these things. Since I've come off it, I've got to say, there's far less pressure. There's on that side of things, and they were created by, in effect, antisocial people.
Very good point.
Antisocial people.
You'll find
to serve their needs. And they pull everyone else in.
Well, indeed, but you'll find, and this is the ultimate irony, that people are talking about where humans are social animals, but more and more of our lives are being controlled by computers, and more and more of our lives are being controlled by computers, and computers, because programming is simply a huge series of zeros and ones. Computers are actually programmed by people with very high Asperger's traits. So the irony is our lives are being increasingly controlled by computers that are programmed by people with Asperger's, who by definition have no kind of social skill whatsoever. How good for that is that going to be, or indeed disastrous?
You know, as I said, the only way Utopia is ever going to happen if we go back into a so there's an apocalypse we go to, and then we rebuild from there. Everyone draws their line, everyone goes to a place where people actually have similar values, and we stay on our own little part.
Press the reset button.
And we stay in our little part of the world. Now it's never going to happen, which means there's always going to be. But there is trouble coming. There is trouble coming. I don't. And well,
Nick
scared.
Hanau, I think he was one of the main investors in Amazon in the beginning. He said that the pitchforks are coming unless something drastic changes.
I'm scared. I mean, look what's happened in Sweden in the last week or so. I mean, 80 cars got firebombed. People, you know, and this is like Sweden, we're supposed to be the most tolerant country in the world. And people are saying enough.
What happened in Manchester? 10 people were injured in Manchester just during the week. I don't know what happened there.
I don't know actually. So actually, you want to talk about the bridge in Italy, in Genoa?
Not much to say, but apparently the Italians are now blaming Brussels because a foreign company was actually the company managing its upkeep.
So what's Brussels got to do with it? I mean, it's in the Italian government who decides?
Maybe it's something to do with laws about who you employ in terms of equal opportunity. Who knows? But it's a big problem.
It's fascinating, and because one thing I've been watching.
Would you like to be in heaven?
Would I like to be in heaven? That's a question I will worry about.
No, you better worry about it now. Do you want to be in heaven? everything white
actually,
and
I'm
beautiful
not
with
gonna
white
answer
doves and everything
that's
peaceful
that's
and
your
lovely.
interpretation of heaven.
Well, that's what most people's interpretation of heaven. And of course,
but how? Why is it everyone's? Hold on a second. Why is it everybody's interpretation of heaven? Because someone painted a
TV.
picture. Exactly, because someone so it's someone else's vision that I'm supposed to be buying into, or someone else's.
Don't forget, heaven is a religious concept, isn't it? Heaven is a religious concept, and the point to make is
the thing is, the Muslims call it paradise, don't they?
Exactly. The point to make is that we die of boredom in heaven, wouldn't we? There is nothing for us to actually get stuck into.
Because heaven is, in effect, is utopia.
Precisely. That's exactly the point. So who wants to be in heaven? Maybe, of course, short bursts of heaven, which is why we go on holiday. But ultimately, we need to be having, and psychology has showed this time again.
Maybe we just want longer holidays.
We need to be having a positive interaction with the environment. That's what psychologists have proven time and again. And in terms of the social inequality that we have, nothing is going to. All these people in the government trying to tweak things, and the politically correct lobbies complaining about stuff. Nothing has been shown to ever improve our social inequality apart from war, famine, pestilence. In other words, resetting to ground zero. That is the only thing.
Wasn't that Maslow's theory?
No, somebody else.
I'm sure. I thought it was Maslow.
No, good try, but it was somebody else.
I could be wrong. I mean, but yeah. So in terms of utopia, it's never going to happen. It can never happen, and people still want to believe it can happen, and that's why people pushing for this idealistic way of life. And we thrive on challenge. We thrive on that extra bit of stress. It releases the noradrenaline in our system to be able
to. What was the story you told me about the fisherman and the entrepreneur and the businessman? They were having a chat together.
Oh gosh, I'm not going to. Okay, have we got enough time?
Yes, we do.
Yes. So, there was apparently there was this MBA qualified person. Let's say Harvard to make this. He's gone to some third world country and he's on the beach and he sees the indigenous man lying on the beach in the morning, under the palm tree every day, and every morning he goes out in his little boat and he fishes every single day, and he brings enough food for it to feed his family, and then after he's done that and his family's fed, he goes back down and lies down under the palm tree. And the guy with the MBA, let's call him John. So John goes up to this guy and he asks them, and he says, I'm just lying here enjoying life and looking out into the sea. And he says, well, do you know what? He goes, how often do you go fishing? He says, probably about 2 hours a day. He says, well, if you did 6 hours a day, eventually you could actually get more fish. You could then go and sell those fish. And then you could actually eventually buy another boat and employ some more people who can then go and fish, and then after about 20 years you can actually, you can actually exit the business and you can actually go back and enjoy life and
work 3 hours a day
and work 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. He says, well, that's exactly what I'm doing now. So that's the story. I can't remember who told me that actually, but so in that respect, some people are probably happy with that. Other people get very bored with that.
The trouble is, nobody's happy with that, which is why people are suffering from more and more depression. Suddenly, in the last 20 years, depression has become the largest cause of suffering and death.
Because they're not being stimulated. They're not,
they're overstimulated. They're stressed. They are there's a sense of out of control. See, the key thing
isn't that sliding scale all over the place? I mean, and then there's the optimum position, because if you're not stimulated, you'll get depressed because you're unfulfilled. Correct. And you're unhappy.
Which is the balance we talked about. The effort reward. So if you don't get the reward for your effort, in other words, if you put in so much effort, you get tiny rewards, you're stressed. But if you get enormous amounts of reward with very little effort, you also get stressed.
So what's the solution then?
Well, you need the balance, don't you?
Yeah.
In fact, if you work for your living in terms of subsistence, because don't forget, what we are is we're simply cavemen, and we're here to survive. And cavemen were driven, and they were happy to work enough to eat and reproduce, and that was it. And then they die. And of course nowadays everything is a substitution for that. It's an illusionary need. We don't have just air, food, water, shelter anymore. Suddenly we have everything around us, whether it's trying to choose which number of these cakes we had, or a new partner, or a new holiday, or a new job, or new shoes, or new handbag, or whatever. These are illusionary needs.
Brands.
We become obsessed.
And it's about image, it's about keeping up with the Joneses.
And we call them dopamine hits. And of course, it's never enough. And of course, nature designed dopamine hits to be never enough because it wanted us to carry on. Once we have a meal, we need to want another dopamine hit so we can get our next meal, although you wouldn't survive. Or we want to reproduce again. And all this thing about hierarchy and insisting that women enter the same hierarchical networks as men is irrelevant again, because women are not hierarchical. Because we've mentioned this before, but the number of children that women have remains about average across the whole population of women, whereas the number of children a male has varies enormously between successful males and unsuccessful males in life. And therefore, this idea of hierarchy is simply based on the need of males to mate. It's got nothing to do with females. This is broad brushstrokes, obviously.
Okay.
And therefore, equality of opportunity, fair enough, but equality of outcome, exceptionally dangerous.
But everyone has got, look, I had this argument about equality of opportunity, and I was arguing this with someone the other night. Actually, it was yesterday I was discussing it with someone. Equality of opportunity, I said, look, how you choose to spend your money, some people choose to spend it by blowing it up their nose or going into the pub. Other people choose to invest it. Okay, that's their choice. If they want to send their kids to private school, that is their choice, but it's a choice. All right? But in terms of equality of opportunity, everyone, particularly in the UK, gets a free education until the age of 18, if they want it. All right? Then you've got a computer that you can access, or you can actually access the internet, and everyone is pretty much in the UK has got access to an internet, and in many other countries as well. There's more information on there that you can learn something if you really wanted to. A 10-year-old child can actually access more specialist information than a highly trained specialist could 10 years ago.
And see, one of the problems, you're right.
And I said that last week to someone.
And you also said it here as well.
Yeah.
But one of the problems in terms of equal opportunity, let's say, is that because females are generally a bit more anxious than males, they comply more with structure, so they do better at school because they do their homework more, whereas boys are more interested in playing around because they're less anxious and therefore less seeking of boundaries.
Well, they'll also take bigger risks, though, which is why...
But hang on, we're just talking about school performance here. And that's why girls have been doing better and better and better in their A-levels, and more girls have been going to university. So now medical students are 70% female, predominantly Asian. What's interesting, however, is this year and the previous year, boys have outperformed girls, and that's very interesting. Is that just an anomaly, or does
boys
that
are becoming more compliant,
or are they becoming more compliant because they're more metrosexual, or are women actually thinking, hang on a second, is this really all it's cracked up to be, or should I really focus on community and family? Who knows?
Well, there you go. Listen, guys, I think we're going to leave that conversation there, and a couple of blunders this week. But please join us next week, and we'll bring you another exciting topic. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.